The ocean wins every fight. It crushed Thresher in 1963. It took Scorpion in 1968. 228 American submariners gone. Then, silence. 50+ years, and the US hasn't lost a single sub since. That's not luck. That's one fix. SubSafe. A system so strict, so relentless, that when USS San Francisco slammed into an undersea mountain at full speed in 2005, the hull held. The crew lived. The boat came home. Here's what makes it work. If any valve, weld, or gasket that touches seawater can't prove its pedigree, heat lot, material trace, test results, the boat doesn't sail. Period. The ocean doesn't negotiate. Neither does SubSafe. Stay with me. We're going inside the fix that ended US subsinkings for good. Picture this. A submarine is a floating city of steel moving blind through mountains under the sea, crushing pressure, black water. One mistake here isn't a mistake. It's a memorial. It's a headline. And before SubSafe, those headlines kept coming. After Thresher and Scorpion, our Navy made a vow. Never again. Not one more crew. Not one more boat. But vows don't stop the ocean. Systems do. What nobody tells you is how that system actually works. It's not a part you bolt on. It's not a sensor. It's a promise. Enforced in steel, tested in chaos, and carried by every sailor who goes deep. And when the worst happens, this promise does one thing better than anything else on Earth. It keeps the ocean out. That's what we're here for. To show you the hidden world behind 50+ years of zero sinkings. To meet the fix that changed our Navy forever. And to understand why, when disaster strikes, SUBSAFE certified boats come home. Let's go. Here's the truth about submarines. The ocean is always pushing in, always. At 1,300 feet, test depth for a Los Angeles-class boat, you're looking at 580 pounds per square inch. That's the weight of a small car pressing on every square inch of hull, every weld, every pipe joint, every hatch seal. A submarine doesn't fight that pressure. It survives by keeping it out. And if the ocean finds one weak point, one failed gasket, one cracked pipe, one bad weld, it floods in faster than a fire hose. Faster than you can think. Before SubSafe, that's exactly what happened. April 10th, 1963, USS Thresher is running deep dive tests off the coast of Massachusetts. She's the Navy's newest attack sub. Cutting edge, packed with 129 men. At 9:17 a.m., her escort ship picks up a garbled transmission, experiencing minor difficulties. Then a sound, muffled, distant, then nothing. Investigators later pieced together what likely happened. A silver-brazed pipe joint failed. Seawater sprayed into the engine room. Salt water hit electrical panels. Power died. The reactor scrammed, shut down automatically. Without power, the boat couldn't move, couldn't heat, couldn't blow ballast tanks to surface. She sank past crush depth. The hull imploded. 129 men gone in seconds. 5 years later, it happened again. USS Scorpion, Atlantic Ocean, May 1968. 99 sailors, same result. Different cause, same outcome, the ocean won. Here's what those losses taught the Navy. Small failures cascade. A single pipe joint fails. Water kills power. No power means no propulsion, no reactor heat, no emergency blow. And if you can't blow your ballast tanks, push compressed air into them to force water out and surface fast, you sink. It's that simple, that brutal. The cost in lives forged a new standard. The Navy didn't just want better pipes or stronger welds. They wanted a system that guaranteed survival. A system where every single component that stood between seawater and the crew was designed, built, tested, and proven to work, even in chaos. They wanted to make sure that if disaster struck, the boat could still blow tanks, still surface, still bring the crew home. Not sometimes, every time. That's where SubSafe was born. Out of grief, out of anger, out of a vow that said never again, and meant it. But here's the question. How do you actually keep the ocean out when everything around you is designed to fail under pressure? How do you guarantee that a valve works, that a weld holds, that an emergency blow succeeds? When you're 800 feet down, freezing, and the lights just went out. That's what SubSafe had to solve. And the answer wasn't a gadget. It was a system. 4 pillars, 0 compromise, built to survive the worst day of your life. Let me show you how it works. SubSafe stands for submarine safety, but that name doesn't do it justice. It's not about safety in the soft sense. It's about survival in the hardest sense. When the ocean finds a way in, SubSafe is the reason the crew finds a way out. Here's how it works. 4 pillars: design, material, fabrication, testing. Every single one has to be perfect. Miss one, and the boat doesn't sail. Period. Let's start with design. Every system that keeps water out or keeps the boat afloat has to be drawn, calculated, and proven on paper before a single piece of metal is cut. Engineers don't guess. They model. They stress test digitally. They account for pressure, temperature swings, vibration, corrosion, and shock. If the math doesn't prove the part can survive, it gets redesigned. No exceptions. Next, material. This is where SubSafe gets obsessive. Every valve, bolt, gasket, pipe, and weld that touches seawater has full traceability. That means you can trace each piece of metal back to the exact heat lot it came from. The batch of steel poured in the foundry. You know its chemistry, its strength, its pedigree. Why does that matter? Because submarines don't fail from bad design. They fail from bad material, a bolt that looks identical to the spec but was made from the wrong alloy, a pipe that passed inspection but came from a flawed batch. SubSafe eliminates that risk. If you can't prove where the metal came from and that it matches the spec, it doesn't go on the boat. Third pillar, fabrication. Only certified workers can build SubSafe components, only approved methods, only inspected welds, and every step is documented. The welder signs, the inspector signs, the supervisor signs. If someone cuts a corner, it shows up in the paperwork, and the part gets rejected. This isn't about trust, it's about proof. Because when you're 1,000 feet down and a pipe cracks, nobody's asking if the welder had a good day. They're asking if the weld was done right. SubSafe makes sure the answer is always yes. Fourth pillar, testing. This is where theory meets reality. SubSafe components don't get installed because they look good. They get installed because they've been tested to destruction and survived. Valves get cycled thousands of times. Pipes get pressurized beyond max operating limits. Welds get x-rayed, ultrasonically scanned, and hydro-tested. And the big one, the emergency main ballast tank blow system, gets tested on every boat, every time, under conditions that simulate the worst-case scenario. Here's why that matters. Before SubSafe, emergency blow systems were assumed to work. They were designed to work, but assumptions don't surface a submarine. Thresher's blow system likely failed because ice formed in the airlines. Moisture froze under pressure and blocked the flow. The crew couldn't blow tanks, they couldn't surface. They died. SubSafe fixed that. Air systems were redesigned, moisture eliminators were added. Testing protocols were written to prove the system works even if you're at depth, freezing, and your reactor just scrammed. And then they tested it. Again and again, until it was guaranteed. Now here's the part that makes SubSafe different from every other safety program in the world. If any of those 4 pillars fails, if one document is missing, if one test result is out of spec, if one piece of material can't be traced, the boat does not sail. Not delayed, not conditionally approved, not, we'll fix it later. It doesn't sail. That's the power of SubSafe. It's not a suggestion, it's a hard stop. And the reason it works is because the Navy learned the cost of saying good enough. 228 lives taught them that good enough gets people killed. So they built a system where good enough doesn't exist, where every link in the chain, design, material, build, test, is locked down and proven. And when disaster strikes, that system gives the crew one thing they didn't have before, a fighting chance. But does it actually work in the real world? When the boat hits a mountain, when the hull buckles, when chaos takes over, does SubSafe deliver? Let me show you. If you believe our crews deserve the best protection on Earth, stand with this community. Tap subscribe. We make deep dives that honor our Navy and the engineering that keeps our people alive. We don't hype, we research, we respect, and we deliver the truth behind the steel. Join us. January 8th, 2005, USS San Francisco, a Los Angeles-class attack submarine, is running submerged at flank speed in the Western Pacific. Full speed, 33 knots, about 525 feet down. The crew's running drills. Some guys are grabbing chow. It's a normal underway. Then the boat hits an undersea mountain. No warning, no time to react. The bow slams into rock at full speed. The impact throws men across compartments. Equipment rips from mounts. Pipes burst. Electrical panels explode. The forward ballast tanks flood instantly. The bow crumples like a car in a head-on collision. One sailor is killed on impact. Dozens are injured. The boat is flooding. She's heavy forward, nose down, sinking fast. And the crew has seconds to decide, fight for the surface or lose the boat. Here's what saved them. SubSafe. The hull held. Even with the bow crushed, even with flooding, the pressure boundary, the main hull that keeps the ocean out, stayed intact. Watertight doors sealed. Emergency blow systems worked exactly as designed. Compressed air roared into the ballast tanks, forcing water out, driving the boat toward the surface. 7 minutes after impact, San Francisco broke the surface. The crew stabilized her. Damage control teams stopped the flooding, and the boat limped to Guam under her own power. 98 men survived. The boat survived, and investigators credited SubSafe as the reason why. The system didn't prevent the accident, it prevented the sinking. Here's the bigger picture. Since 1968, the US Navy has had serious incidents. Groundings, collisions, fires. Each one could have been a headline. Each one could have been another memorial. 2009, USS Hartford collides with an amphibious ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Serious damage, no sinking, crew safe, boat repaired. 2012, USS Miami catches fire during maintenance in port. Massive damage. 7-month blaze investigation. The boat was eventually decommissioned, but no lives lost at sea, no sinking. 2021, USS Connecticut, a Seawolf-class submarine, hits an uncharted seamount in the South China Sea. Severe bow damage, flooding. The crew fights back. Emergency blow works. The boat surfaces. 11 sailors injured, 0 fatalities. Connecticut eventually returned to port and was later decommissioned, but she didn't sink. The crew came home. Every single one of those incidents had the potential to become another Thresher, another Scorpion, another list of names on a memorial wall, but they didn't. Because SubSafe doesn't rely on luck. It relies on design that's been proven, material that's been traced, fabrication that's been certified, testing that's been passed. Let me take you inside one of those moments. San Francisco, right after impact. The lights are out. Emergency lighting kicks in. Red, dim, barely enough to see. Water's pouring through ruptured piping. Alarms are screaming. The deck is tilted forward. Men are bleeding, disoriented, trying to figure out what just happened. And in that chaos, the training takes over. Damage control teams move. Watertight doors slam shut. The chief of the boat orders emergency blow. The officer of the deck confirms. And deep in the ballast control panel, valves open. High-pressure air rushes into the tanks. Pizza night turned into triage. Families back home had no idea. But the reason those families got their sailors back, the reason San Francisco didn't become a steel coffin on the ocean floor, was built years before that patrol ever started. It was built in the welds that held under impact, in the gaskets that sealed when they were supposed to, in the emergency blow system that worked in the dark, under pressure, when everything else was falling apart. SubSafe didn't save the bow, it saved the crew. Here's what that means. The ocean is still undefeated. It still crushes steel. It still finds weaknesses. It still waits for mistakes. But since 1968, it hasn't claimed a single American submarine, not because we stopped making mistakes, but because we built a system that survives them. So the question isn't whether SubSafe works. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is, can a system this strict, this disciplined, this uncompromising last through new technology, new threats, and new generations of boats and crews? Let me show you the answer. Every submarine the US Navy builds today is born with SubSafe in its DNA. Virginia-class attack boats, Columbia-class ballistic missile submarines, every one. From the first design sketch to the final sea trial, SubSafe is woven into every decision. The engineers who design the hulls know the rules. The welders who join the steel are certified. The inspectors who sign off on every component carry the weight of those 228 names, Thresher and Scorpion, on their shoulders. And the sailors who take those boats to sea trust that every valve, every weld, every gasket between them and the ocean has been proven. That trust isn't assumed, it's earned. Every single day. Here's what makes SubSafe different from almost any other safety program in the world. It doesn't fade. It doesn't get watered down over time. It doesn't bend when budgets get tight or schedules slip. Because the Navy learned something in 1963 that it will never forget. The cost of cutting corners is measured in lives. So the standards don't relax, the testing doesn't get skipped, the documentation doesn't go missing. And if a part fails inspection, if a weld is out of spec, if a material trace is incomplete, if a test result is marginal, the boat doesn't sail, period. That discipline is the shield, not the steel, not the technology, the discipline. Crews change, technology advances, threats evolve, but the ocean doesn't change. It's the same crushing pressure today that it was in 1963. The same black water, the same unforgiving physics, and SubSafe is the same uncompromising answer. Here's the part that matters most. Pride isn't earned by headlines. It's earned in silence. By the welder who redoes a joint because the x-ray showed a flaw no one else would catch. By the inspector who rejects a valve because the paperwork is missing one signature. By the crew that drills emergency procedures until muscle memory takes over. So when the lights go out and the alarms scream, they know exactly what to do. SubSafe is the promise that those people made, that our Navy made, that we as a nation made to every sailor who volunteers to go deep. The promise is simple. We will not send you into the ocean on hope. We will send you on proof. Proof that the hull will hold. Proof that the systems will work. Proof that if the worst happens, you have a fighting chance to come home. 50+ years, 0 sinkings. That's not a lucky streak. That's a promise kept. And here's what it means for the future. As long as the US Navy operates submarines, SubSafe will be there. In the design rooms, in the shipyards, in the test facilities, in the training pipelines, passed from one generation to the next. Because the lesson of Thresher and Scorpion isn't just history, it's a warning. And the Navy refuses to forget. The one fix that ended US submarine sinkings for 50+ years wasn't a part. It wasn't a sensor. It wasn't a material. It was a system built from tragedy, enforced with discipline and proven in chaos. A system that says the ocean doesn't negotiate and neither do we. SubSafe is the quiet shield. The one most people never see. The one our crews depend on every single day. And the reason that when disaster strikes, American submarines and American sailors come home. That's the story. That's the fix. And that's the vow our Navy keeps every time a boat goes deep. If you're proud of the people who hold that line, join us. Subscribe to the Navy Intel. We honor our Navy with deep research, clear stories, and respect. Be part of a community that backs our crews, learns the truth, and keeps this history alive. We don't chase clicks, we chase clarity. And we're here because our sailors deserve nothing less. Thank you for going deep with us today. Stay curious, stay proud, and we'll see you on the next dive.